Hello, welcome to Brickwall Pictures. I'm Sam, and today I am ranking a bunch of Noah Baumbach films in a tier list. Noah Baumbach is a filmmaker I love. He's also pretty closely linked to Wes Anderson, if you're familiar with him. I feel like Wes Anderson is the bigger name among cinephiles, but then Noah Baumbach occasionally will have a film that really does break through to like huge audiences, like a Marriage Story. Some of his movies are like really near and dear to my heart. Other ones less so, but that's what makes this is going to make this tier list interesting, I think. These are in a randomized order except for Frances Ha. I put this one first because if you've been around this channel a while, you've probably heard me talk about Frances Ha before. It's one of my all-time favorite films, like, way up at the tippy top of my favorite films of all time. It's the S tier, easy. If you want to hear about my thoughts on it, check out my video essay on motivated versus unmotivated camera movement. That's an essay where I go pretty deep into Frances Ha. So check that out. I absolutely love this film. It's a movie that made Greta Gerwig one of my favorite actresses, or even just like my single favorite actress. She's actually in a relationship with Noah Baumbach. They're a couple, or at least they were. I think they still are, because I think they're writing the Barbie movie together, which is interesting. It sounds like a bad idea. These two really great indie writers and directors, and having them do such a commercialized thing sounds bad in theory, but I am giving them the benefit of the doubt and hoping that it will be something really interesting that does not do what people are expecting. We'll have to wait and see, though. Next up is Marriage Story. This is his most recent film at the time of making this tier list. And it's one of his most critically acclaimed and most like widestream accessible. It kind of annoyed me that the big, huge, dramatic scene of the film became like a meme before anyone had even seen the movie. That kind of pissed me off because it was kind of like spoiling a moment and robbing a bunch of people of the impact of that scene who hadn't seen the movie. Excellent film. I'm glad it got some Academy Awards attention. I think it deserved more. I don't know how Adam Driver didn't get more love for that performance by the Academy. I think he got plenty of love from like cinephiles and whatnot. He is incredible in the film. I think Adam Driver is just a great actor in general. I really like pretty much all of his performances. I haven't, I'm not a Star Wars guy, so I don't know how good he is in those movies. But I think he's great in like everything else I've seen him in. Scarlett Johansson is great in this as well. It was odd to me that Laura Dern is the one who won for her performance in this, because she's good in it, but it's a pretty small character, and like Laura Dern has given much better performances. It's almost one of those Oscars where it's like retroactive. Like the Oscars does that sometimes, where they give someone an Oscar who deserves an Oscar, but they just kind of give it to them for the wrong performance. I think that's what happened with Laura Dern. It's really all about the two leads, Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, and they're both excellent. If there were lesser performances, lesser actors in those two parts, the movie would not work nearly as well. But I think it's excellent. It's so impeccably written. Like you can tell that it's a very personal story. If you don't know, Noah Baumbach was previously married to Jennifer Jason Leigh, who's an actress I really love as well. And she's been in a bunch of his movies back when they were together. They went through a divorce, and then that divorce is kind of provides the foundation for Marriage Story. I really appreciate that. It feels very fair to both sides. It's not like Noah Baumbach is having Adam Driver be a surrogate for him and making him right all the time and making the wife some terrible person. It feels very fair to both of them. And I think it does this really interesting thing where the movie manages to make each of the husband and wife, each parent, because they have a child in this divorce, it manages to make each of them feel like you can root for them and be on their side whenever you're with them and with their POV. And then when you're with the other parent and you hear them talk about the other one, you can equally get on board with them, being like, oh yeah, fuck that spouse, they're the wrong one. But it goes both ways. It's so interesting how you can both be on their side in one scene and then be against them on the other, dependent on whose POV you're following. I think that's a really tricky balance to get right, and I think Baumbach nailed it. I think it's a great film. I've been wanting to make a video essay on Marriage Story since it came out, and I just haven't got around to it yet. I think it's another S tier film. I didn't mean to, do two S tiers right in a row. I promise they're not all going to be S tier. Okay, next up is Kicking and Screaming, which was Baumbach's first film, I think. It's in the Criterion Collection. That's where I saw it. Not to be confused with when I saw Noah Baumbach, when I was like looking at his IMDb, I was like, Noah Baumbach, Kicking and Screaming, what, that Will Ferrell soccer comedy? That was one of his movies? And then I saw it was in the Criterion Collection. I was like, what? That Will Ferrell kids soccer movie is in the Criterion Collection? But no, it's actually just a different movie. They even both use the ampersand instead of and. It's on some similar territory as like The Graduate, kind of, except like while they're still in college. This like sort of not knowing what your life's purpose is, kind of meandering through life. There's some really interesting stuff in there, and there's some funny moments. It's not the best. I think some of the actors are actually a little weak. Eric Stoltz is in there, and he's really good, of course. But some of the other actors aren't quite up to the level of the material, I don't think. It also does feel like a first film in a lot of ways. And Baumbach would get better from there. I think it's like a C tier, because it does have some really interesting things to say. And there are some funny moments, like some that I can even recall now, even though it's been a while since I saw it. Okay, next up is The Squid and the Whale. This is an easy A-tier film, in my opinion. Really good performances across the board. I know a lot of people don't like Jesse Eisenberg. They think he's just wooden or whatever. I like Eisenberg, at least in the right role. You know, I don't never saw his Lex Luthor or whatever, which is, I guess, one of the things a lot of people hate him from. I think it's really good in Squid and the Whale. I think this is a good one to watch if you are someone who doesn't really like Jesse Eisenberg or thinks he doesn't have a lot of range. I think he's good here. He's younger in this than in a lot of his more famous movies. Laura Linney is great. I'm a big fan of her. And Jeff Daniels is great as well. The other kid's good too. He doesn't leave as much of an impression, but, you know, what are you going to do? It's really interesting. It's very dramatic. There's a lot of really interesting parallels between The Squid and the Whale and Royal Tenenbaums. I won't go into too much detail on that, but if you like analyze them, they feel so different, but there's a lot similar on a story level. There's even both movies even have a scene where the male patriarch gets angry about a tennis game not going his way. There's a lot of similarities there, and it makes sense because Wes Anderson and Noah Baumbach are they're friends. They've co-written movies together. Like Noah Baumbach co-wrote Life Aquatic with Wes Anderson, and I think Roman Coppola also co-wrote that with them, and he also co-wrote Fantastic Mr. Fox, so they've worked together. Greenberg, I wanted to like this one a lot more than I did. It honestly left so little of an impression on me, and I didn't really get what this one was going for. It felt like, definitely feels like a Noah Baumbach movie, like it's on similar territory, but it kind of feels like retreading territory rather than saying anything new. I don't think Ben Stiller's bad in it or anything, but I don't think it's a very interesting character, even though it's like the movie's titled after him and it's supposed to be like a character study. I just don't find the character all that interesting. I thought I'd like it a whole lot more because Greta Gerwig's in it. It was the first time Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach worked together. I don't think they were like in a relationship yet. Also, Greta Gerwig co-wrote Frances Ha and Mistress America, her other two collaboration with Noah Baumbach, but she didn't have any hand in writing this one, so that might play a factor in it. Greenberg leaves so little of an impression on me. I think it's honestly D tier. Next up is The Meyerowitz Stories, new and selected. This one really flew under the radar. It was a Netflix original. It had me worried about Marriage Story, thinking that one might fly under the radar too, considering it was, two Noah Baumbach movies, released pretty close together. And Meyerowitz Stories, or the full title is The Meyerowitz Stories, new and selected, which is I don't know, that's an unnecessary little title addendum. It's really good, though. Ben Stiller is a lot better in this one. Well, again, I don't think he was bad in Greenberg. I just think his character wasn't that interesting. But he is interesting in Meyerowitz Stories. He has one really good scene that I think shows some of his best acting that he's ever done, actually, like in terms of dramatic acting. It's a very funny movie, but it's also very strong dramatically. Dustin Hoffman's really good in it. Adam Sandler, who is obviously extremely hit or miss, this is one of his really good performances. I think he's great in it, actually. It's not top tier Noah Baumbach, though. As Jeff Daniels in The Squid and the Whale would call it, he would call it lesser Baumbach. And I think that's true, but I think it's very good. I'm going to put it in B tier. I think it's definitely worth watching if you didn't know about it or you skipped it the first time around. I think it was very good. Okay, next up is While We're Young. This one came out the same year as Mistress America, which is super impressive, I think. Ben Stiller's good in it again. Naomi Watts is good in it. Also, Adam Driver's in it, who is great. He was in Frances Ha, too, by the way, so they've worked together a few times. He's really funny in While We're Young. While We're Young, I think, is really funny. It's got some honestly hilarious moments. I think for a lot of the runtime, it's like maybe an A-tier movie. Maybe more like a B-tier movie. But then there's like a twist in the third act. And I don't think it's like a bad twist on its own, but it feels so out of place for this story. Like, it just feels like, why is there any kind of like plot twist in this movie? Because it's not that kind of movie. It feels like it feels like it belongs in a different movie, and it kind of sours the experience for me, and it makes me feel really unfocused and like unsure of what it's trying to do. So that's a misstep. I still enjoyed like the rest of the movie up until that point though, but it does kind of sour things. I think it's like C tier. Yeah, I definitely like it a whole lot more than Greenberg, so I'd put it in C tier. Okay, next up is Margot at the Wedding. This one is with his former wife, Jennifer Jason Leigh, who's really good in it, by the way. Jack Black is he's good in it. Nicole Kidman is the titular Margot who goes to this wedding, and she is an interesting character. This one just doesn't feel personal at all. It almost feels like Baumbach directing like someone else's script. Like he got assigned to this script by a studio and just decided to make it, but that wasn't the case. Yeah, something just feels off about it. You know, it's like the cast is good, the performances are good. It's got this like weirdly kind of dour tone. It's like, I don't know, it kind of feels like it's maybe was trying to like fit into the mold, that specific mold of indie dramedies that were really popular at the time. I don't know, something about it just doesn't quite feel like Baumbach. It feels like watered down. Maybe the studio was like, oh, you got to make it more like these other indie comedies that were successful recently, or something like that. But it's just weird. It's like everything's all overcast for like no reason. It's very dour and somber in a way that doesn't feel necessary to the story being told. Something feels off about it, and it doesn't feel quite cohesive and complete. I think it's another C tier film actually. And next up is Mistress America, which is the other Greta Gerwig led one that she co-wrote with Baumbach. She actually isn't the protagonist in this one, like Mistress America. The protagonist is actually Lola Kirk, and Greta Gerwig is like a really big supporting role, kind of. The movie's like about her. I mean, she's like the titular Mistress America, I guess, but she's like a supporting character, and that's right for this character, and she's so good in it. Again, such a great performance. This movie has a great sense of fun. It's essentially a screwball comedy, even though that genre kind of died a long time ago. But it has that feel, that kind of energy to it. There's this whole extended sequence in Connecticut toward the end of the film that it's like, it becomes like a chamber play almost, like a really tight one-act comedy play almost. And it is so funny. Oh, also I got to shout out her ex-fiance, who's the current fiance of Rose Byrne in the movie. Okay, there we go. Michael Chernus is his name. Michael Chernus is so funny in Mistress America. He's really good. He steals the show. You know, I love me some Greta Gerwig-led indie comedy feeling goodness. It is very funny, very strong dramatically. The main character is more complex than what at first meets the eye. They do some things that aren't great. They're kind of a morally questionable character, which is cool to see because I feel like so many movies just kind of play it straight and give you the like protagonist who does nothing wrong kind of thing. And so I like seeing a movie that is okay letting its protagonist not be like a perfect human being. Anyway, I like Mistress America a whole lot. Not as much as Frances Ha, though. I think it's an A tier. So very good. Yeah, so here's our spread. We have 2 S tier films, 2 A tier, 1 B, 3 C, and 1 D. I like Noah Baumbach a whole lot, but I don't like all of his films equally. We have a pretty big spread here, actually. So there we go. That's our Noah Baumbach tier list. I feel pretty comfortable locking in those rankings where they're at. Let me know where you would rank Noah Baumbach's films down in the comments, and if there's any other particular filmmaker you'd like to see a tier list for. I've done a whole bunch of them at this point, so check the description for my tier list playlist, and make sure you subscribe to Brickwall Pictures for everything else I do. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.